Okay, let's go. We are right back at it with the E46 M3. So it seems like a lot of you guys really enjoyed the last video. We got a lot done on the E46, but there's still a lot more to go. The interior is half in. We've still got the front seats to go in and the whole of the rear interior to go in. We've still got the central locking to fix, which we think is the door lock actuator, which is inside here. And more importantly, the subframe, the diff, the prop shaft, the exhaust is still off the car because we had to fix the crack that was in the boot floor of the E46, a well-known common problem. Now, all of you guys will be pleased to know that the strengthening plates that go over the cracks on the boot floor, they've turned up and they've been welded to the boot floor. Come on. Now, before, where the subframe mounts to these studs here, it was all cracked on the boot floor. But now we've got these strengthening plates, which are over the top. Now, Hannah's gone over it with some under seal. It may need another coat, but it's looking pretty good as it is. So we've got these strengthening plates here, which should prevent it from cracking ever again. It's also got the strengthening plates on the back and over here. So that should be the solution to this fix. That's what a lot of E46 owners do. Now, I've since learned that this E46 hasn't been on the road since 2007. That was its last MOT test. So I'm hoping in today's video we can continue the restoration by installing the rest of the parts, get it back on the road, even install a new exhaust to it so we can hear the sweet sound of that straight six engine as well. But we've got a lot to get through before we get to that point. You may have noticed that the bushes in this rear subframe are absolutely shot, and whilst we've got this whole thing down, we might as well replace them. And just like Blue Peter, here are some that I've done earlier. These are Powerflex bushes. They're uprated ones. Now, we do have some positive and negatives with them. The positives being that they're easy to install and they tend to last longer than the standard ones. But the negatives being that these are a lot more rigid than the standard bushes. So we may get a lot more vibration through the boot floor of the car. But for me, the positives outweigh the negatives. But I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Enough rambling. Let's get this thing put back together. So removing the standard bushes can be a bit of a nightmare, but I found this was the best way. Heating it up a lot with a heat gun and then knocking it through with a big hammer. On some of them I'd use my drill, use the heat gun again, which sometimes set fire to the bush, and then I could knock it straight out. Now, I'd love to sandblast and powder coat the whole rear subframe to make it look really fresh, but if I did that, I'd be wanting to do it to the front as well, and I simply can't afford to have this car in the ramp for much longer than it already is. So for now, I'm just coating it with some Hammerite. Whilst I wait for that to dry, I can collect up all the lines for the fuel tank, which I've actually cleaned. I've replaced a lot of the old rusty Jubilee clips with some new ones as well, and reinstalling the fuel tank, it obviously helped with it being empty. Now the subframe was dry, I could install the Powerflex bushes. These are pretty simple to go in, they just literally push in by hand. And some needed a little bit of persuasion with a mallet. But there we go, one rear subframe ready to go back in. Now, I'd be lying if I said this was easy to get back in, but the technique I used was slide it underneath with a jack, get a few bolts in underneath, and then I could raise the ramp up and put the rest of the bolts in. Okay, finally the subframe is on, but we're still not even touching the surface of where we need to be. Check this out. So we're looking good underneath here. So we've got the new Powerflex bushes in as well. That should improve things on the rear. The subframe's in, the diff's in, the drive shafts are in. Everything is all back together apart from the suspension as well. We've got the brake lines still to put in. We've got to bleed the brakes as well. The next step though is the handbrake cables, so then we can start to put the prop shaft back in. So we've got two handbrake cables. These have got to slot up into these holes here, which go inside the car. Then we can connect it up to the actual handbrake lever and we can work our way back from there. So there's literally no stopping. Let's carry on with it. Okay, so two handbrake cables, one for the right side, the other for the left. They slot up through the bottom of the floor and then inside the car. Then they can just bolt on with two 10mm bolts. And we do these tight enough just so the handbrake clicks up 3 clicks. Once that's done, I can reconnect the brake lines. Then it's time to put in the prop shaft. I've got to connect the bolts from the prop shaft, go into the gearbox. And then the bolts go from the prop shaft to the diff. We used a few grips just to move it round to line up the bolts. Prop shaft done, heat shields next. With the heat shield in, I can then reassemble the suspension. The dampers go in first. I bolt these at the bottom. then put in the new spring, and I've actually lowered the rear of this, so it'll be interesting to see what it looks like at the end. And then I can go inside the boot and I can put in the 2 bolts on each of the dampers. And then I can reassemble the whole of the boot. It's looking a lot cleaner. And finally, putting back in the battery. Now, something that's been doing my head in is this AC Schnitzer rear diffuser. Although it may have been good back in its day, it's not aged so great. So this will be coming off along with the rest of the diffuser and being replaced with a fresh one. And it also gives us better access to these cruddy old exhaust mountings, which again is going to need to be replaced because all the rubber has cracked. As all of you pretty much know by now, I found this car abandoned at the side of a racetrack, and straight away I knew I wanted it. But before I made an offer to the people at the racetrack, I was first checking it out with Car Vertical, which is something all of you guys should be doing before buying your used car or even a crash damaged car. So Car Vertical, who have obviously sponsored today's video, can be used on your phone or a desktop computer, and you can get a car checked out within minutes. It gathers data from car insurance companies, crash car auctions, car manufacturers, and so on. So I'm on Car Vertical right now, and if I just put in the registration of the BMW M3, with a few clicks, it's gathering data from all across the world. And we've got 4 green ticks, which is always good. No mileage fraud, no reports of a theft, accident, or being used as a taxi. I can see all MOT history, when private plates were put on the car, and all the mileage all in line. This is a pretty good report, unlike this Audi S3. So on this Audi S3, we can see we've got an amber light for an accident. And if I scroll down, we can actually see when the damage was recorded on the S3. And it will even show me the pictures from the crash car auction website as well. So to check your car, a friend's car, or a car that you're potentially about to buy, you can click the link in the description box below, and that's going to save you 10% using my link. And who knows, you may even save even more than that if the car that you're going to look at is potentially a lemon. Thanks Car Vertical for sponsoring this video and also helping me out with checking every single one of my cars before I buy them. Okay, I'm really enjoying this. It's so nice to do a job where you see a visual difference as well as something which should make the car drive better as well. Now, as I mentioned, I would have loved to have sandblasted and powder coated the whole of it underneath of the car, along with the subframe and everything else on the rear whilst it was all down. But if I did that to the rear, I would have been wanting to do it to the front of the car as well, pulling the engine out and doing the front. But I do only have one ramp in here, and that takes a lot of time. And to have this kind of ramp for that amount of time would put all the other builds on the channel way behind. But despite that, we're making really good progress, and there's no reason why after this job this can't be put back on the road. Now, we may need to change the suspension. This has probably been on here since the dawn of day, so it might need to come off and we need to upgrade that, but we can do that at a later stage. We need new brake pads in these calipers. The calipers need to be cleaned up. This whole brake disc and hub needs to be cleaned up as well. But next up, I think it's going to be the exhaust. I'm excited for this one. So this is what we got. We've got a Scorpion catback exhaust. It's a resonated one. I don't want it too loud, but I'm sure you guys would agree that we want to hear the sound of the straight six. So replacing it with like an OEM exhaust, it's just not doing it for me. I have no idea what this is going to sound like, but I do know what it looks like, and the exhaust tips look pretty close to the OEM exhaust tips, which is exactly what I want, but with a little bit more noise. We've teamed up now. Chris is here to help me get this exhaust on because there's no way I'm going to be able to lift this up on my own. Let's send it. So a big shout out to Scorpion Exhaust. This is not the first Scorpion exhaust system I bought for one of my cars, and I'm sure it won't be the last. I wanted this exhaust to look as OEM as possible, but with a little bit more sound. So this is a catback exhaust, so we're going to remove the old exhaust system from the catalytic converters. And when working on an old car, nothing's quite that simple. The old bolts are really rusty, so the angle grinder had to come out. Once we grinded off the old bolts, we could separate the catalytic converter from the rest of the old exhaust system and then start connecting it up with the new Scorpion exhaust. Once I connected the front section up, me and Chris could lift it up onto the car and connect up the lambda sensors as well. And then fresh from Sitner BMW, we've got some new exhaust hangers ready for the Scorpion exhaust. Remember, there's a discount code that you guys can use for Sitner in the description box below. Now, I definitely wouldn't have been able to do this on my own. Me and Chris struggled, and that was 2 of us. These exhaust systems are not light, but once we've got the rear box up, we can connect the pipes to it. And if you know these E46 BMWs, they have some weird connecting system to the back box, which includes these little shims here. And this little weird O-ring thing here, which I managed to get in and then drop back down. But Chris saw the funny side of things. And with the exhaust connected up, I could put the new diffuser on, which is just an original one. Yes, it's the wrong colour, but this car is going to be painted at some point. Okay, so now the exhaust is fully on, the catback Scorpion exhaust. It has got resonators in, as I've mentioned, just here, which should quiet it down. It shouldn't be too loud, but it should unleash the sound of that straight six engine. Now, normally on exhaust videos, I like to just drop it down straight away, start the car, but that's not the case. Whilst we're under it, we've still got a few more bits to do. This diff has probably never been serviced, or probably hasn't been serviced since the dawn of day. So I'm going to drop the oil, or if there is any oil in it, we're about to find out. Fill it up with some new diff oil whilst we're here. We've still got a brace to go on the bottom. Then we can finally sort the brakes out, get the wheels on, and then hopefully start it for the first time since we dropped all the other stuff down. So unlike the 140i diff, this has two plugs, a fill plug and a drain plug. I'm going to be undoing the fill plug first, because if we undo the drain plug and then we can't undo the fill plug, we're in big trouble. Now actually, when seeing the oil being drained out, it looked pretty clean, so it must have had a service previously. And this is the oil that I'm going to be using to refill it. This is a little bit more expensive than the usual oil. It's direct from Sytner BMW, and it's supposed to make the diff a little bit quieter than usual. And if you've watched any of my previous videos, you know we have to pump in the oil using this hand pump. It took just under 3 litres of oil, then we can tighten the plugs back up. Next up is the support brace underneath, which I realised after I put it on, I was supposed to put on plastics first, but I'm going to replace those plastics for new ones anyway. Next job is to remove the rear brake pads, because I'm pretty sure they have long gone. And after removing them, I can confirm that. Then I can clean up the rear caliper and just put a lick of hammer out on it. But I think I'm going to be doing a big brake upgrade on this car, so I'm not too worried about the calipers that are on it at the minute. So whilst all the rear brakes are drying, we do need to bleed them as well, I can't forget that. But we can crack on with a bit of the interior, because this door actuator has just turned up. Only about like 30 quid off eBay for a door actuator. I still don't know whether this is going to fix the central locking issue, but it's 3 bolts. Let's get this out, put the new one in, and hopefully we'll have some central locking. Fingers crossed. Now this job took a lot longer than I thought it was going to take. There was only 3 bolts to actually remove the door lock actuator, but there wasn't enough room to guide it out, so I had to just loosen off the window regulator so I could slide it out and through the door. And here's me trying to work out if my door actuator is actually even broken. Now I could neither confirm or deny that my door actuator was actually even broken in the first place, but regardless, I start installing the brand new second-hand door actuator. And with a bit of wiggling round, I managed to get it on, and then I could fit the new door card back onto the door. That took way longer than it should have ever took. Now, I've got new batteries for the key, so I'm not expecting it to work when I press the button. I think the batteries are flat, and I'm going to change the battery for the key, and then I've got to re-glue the key back up so we don't have to have this tape on. But if this central locking does not work now with the key in, I'm setting fire to the car. Here we go. Actually, no, let's try with the button first. Okay, nothing. Doesn't work.
No. Doesn't work.
Wow. After all that, wait, let me check. Oh no. Okay, now we're locked out. Okay, this one's open. Okay, so I don't know if this is going to change anything, but this is the button for this central locking button here. Let's see if I plug this in, is it going to work? Okay, I've got nothing, no power there. I've got nothing, and I did have power before, so now we've gone backwards. The only thing I can think of is that I've not plugged it in properly on the bottom, but that means I've got to take the door card off again to do it. but the barrel in this key does feel a little bit funny. I mean, the barrel could be another option. Oh wow, it's nothing is ever straightforward. Okay, so despite that, I've put the brake pads in the rear. I just need to bleed the brakes. Then we can put the wheels on and roll this thing out. There's still going to be a few bits left to do on the back of the car, and the car's going to definitely need to go back in the ramp after I do roll it out. But I just want to get this out for now, just so I can get another car in. But we've made half decent progress. I still don't know about it. I still don't know about this door. It literally does sicken me that I put the wheels on the car and lower the car down, knowing that I've not finished the rear of the car yet. There's still a lot of plastics to go on underneath. There's the arch lining. There's still a lot of things to clean up as well. But at least the brakes are bled at the minute, so I can at least drive it out. Now, as I probably mentioned, those rear trailing arms, they're adjustable, and they decide whether the wheels at the back have got toe in or toe out. I've just bolted them on, so they could be absolutely anywhere, but we're going to get around to doing that eventually. Now, we're just missing one more thing to get this car started and hear the sound of the new exhaust, and that is fuel. Okay, fuel is in and the exhaust is looking really nice. Yes, the diffuser is completely the wrong colour. This is going to be painted, but it sits really nice against the back of the diffuser. Let's start this up and see what it sounds like. Right, Liam is doing the honours of starting the E46 for the first time since it's been down on the ramp and with the new exhaust. Liam, start it up if it will. First. That's still quite quiet. Still quite quiet. Let's let her warm up and then we'll give her a little bit of a rev, but it's quite quiet at the minute. The way I like to explain resonated exhaust to non-resonated exhaust is that on a non-res, you'll hear it be noisier from stock, like straight away. Like you start it on idle, it'll be noisier. When you're giving it some, it'll be noisier. But a resonated exhaust, it should idle the same, but then when you've got your foot down, it should be a lot louder. Let me explain. Go on, Liam. Oh, that does sound good. That does sound good. That is got the straight six raspiness. If only we could hear what it sounds like under load. Let's get it outside. Okay, so we've got good news and bad news for the E46. Sometimes I feel like I'm just running on a treadmill with this car, but let's go through the good news first. The good news is now it's off the ramp and the rear wheels are on, so it can actually roll round and drive on its own accord. We've got some fresh bushes, brake pads, and the hubs and the calipers are looking a lot cleaner in that black. The new Scorpion exhaust looks really nice, it sits really nice, and it sounds really good as well. Proper happy with the Scorpion exhaust. Also, the central locking has decided to work with this button now. Hey! But unfortunately, it still doesn't work with the key. Which brings me on to the bad things. Let's start with the small things first, and then we'll work our way up to something that I think is going to be very expensive and annoying at the same time. First off, the central locking that isn't working with the key. The only thing it could be now is a little computer that's stored behind the glove box in the car, which controls a lot of the electrics in the car, like your wipers, your central locking, and your windows going up and down. Again, this is not a huge problem, but if I'm right, I'm sure it's got to be coded to the car, and it's something that I can't do myself, but we could definitely get that fixed. So I bought a full black interior, black door cards, black front seats, and black rear seats, and I left the dashboard. I thought, let's put this in and see what the dashboard will look like with the black against the grey. And turns out it looks rubbish, so I bought a full black dashboard to go in. So I'm leaving the interior out of here at the minute just so I can crawl around the car ready to put the black dashboard in. And right now you're about to see, well, here, what I think is going to be the most expensive problem of them all. Listen to this. Now, I first noticed this noise when I first got the car and I drove it around the car park, and I just assumed that it was the rear subframe rocking against the cracks in the boot floor. Turns out not. Check this out. That does not sound good. So the diff is glunking round, which says to me it's got a lot of wear in the diff. Obviously we changed the oil in it, so, and the oil looks fine, but I think there's a lot of wear in the diff, and not only that, listen to it on full lock. You ready? Can you hear the diff? It almost sounds like the diff is welded. That's how bad it is. It is not liking it at all. You could just feel it. It sounds like it's got a welded diff for drifting, but it definitely hasn't got a welded diff. Oh, it's a lot smoother going to the right, but there is a lot of wear in that rear diff, which makes me think, oh my God, we might have to buy a whole new diff for the rear. That sounds absolutely awful. It obviously sounds 10 times worse because we're in a stripped out interior, but that's definitely not how it should be. So a few wins and a few losses on the E46, but we're kind of making progress, but it feels like I just need to strip the car completely to bits and change everything on it until it's happy. But I guess that's just the pleasure of working on old cars like this M3. She's still got a long way to go, but she's getting better day by day. This is not an overnight job. I would have loved to have got even more done for you guys and even take it on his first drive and hear that exhaust tone, but it just simply wasn't meant to be this week. But guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.